Imagine this. You pick up your phone just to check one message. Maybe it's a text from a friend, maybe a quick notification from work, maybe just that little red bubble that feels like it's calling your name. You tell yourself, this will take 30 seconds. But suddenly, 40 minutes are gone. You've scrolled, you've tapped, you've watched, and you're left with that weird foggy feeling. Your energy drained, your focus shattered, and a quiet frustration inside that says, why can't I control this? If that feels familiar, you're not broken. You're not weak, you're human. And what you're up against isn't just distraction, it's a system designed to hijack your attention. Social media apps, notifications, the endless scroll, they're engineered to keep you hooked. But here's the good news. Breaking this cycle doesn't require superhuman willpower. You don't need to delete every app, throw your phone out the window, or run away to the mountains. You just need one tiny physical trick, one tiny lock that short-circuits the addiction loop and gives you back control in under a minute. Before I show you how it works, let's step into the science for a moment. Because once you understand why your phone feels irresistible, you'll see why such a small shift can be so powerful. Your brain has what psychologists call a cue routine reward loop. The cue is the trigger, the buzz of a notification, the sight of your phone on the desk, even the thought of boredom. The routine is the automatic action. You pick it up, unlock it, swipe. And the reward is the dopamine hit, the novelty, the surprise, the little rush of stimulation that comes from seeing something new. The problem isn't the reward itself, it's the loop. Every time you repeat it, the loop gets stronger. Your brain starts craving the routine even when the reward isn't that good. That's why you sometimes scroll aimlessly, not even enjoying it, but still unable to stop. It's not about pleasure anymore, it's about habit. So what's the simplest way to break a loop? You don't attack the craving directly, you interrupt the routine. Imagine a record spinning. If you try to stop it by force, it fights back. But if you just nudge the needle off the track, the loop ends. That's what the tiny lock does. It's not about deleting your apps. It's not about using sheer willpower. It's about putting one small physical step between you and the automatic unlock swipe scroll. And here's the key. That one small step is enough to give your brain a moment of awareness, a microsecond where you wake up and realize, wait, do I really want this right now? Because without that awareness, your hand moves before your mind decides. But with it, you reclaim choice. Let me give you the framework I call the lock loop break. It has 3 parts: barrier, awareness, and choice. The barrier is the tiny physical lock. It could be as simple as using a screen time passcode, a lock app, or even flipping the phone face down into a pouch with a zipper. The form doesn't matter, the effect does. The key is that when your hand moves to unlock, you hit a micro barrier. Something interrupts the automatic flow. The second step is awareness. That split second when you meet the barrier is where the magic happens. Your autopilot is interrupted. It's like a speed bump for your brain. You suddenly ask yourself, what am I about to do? Do I actually want this? That question doesn't appear without the barrier. It appears because of it. And the third step is choice. With awareness back online, you're no longer reacting. You're deciding. Sometimes you'll still choose to unlock, and that's fine. But more often than not, you'll realize, I don't actually need this right now, and your hand will put the phone back down. That's the entire loop: barrier, awareness, choice. Simple, physical, and shockingly effective. Now you might be thinking, can something so small really beat something as powerful as phone addiction? The answer is yes, because you're not fighting the entire system at once. You're just adding friction at the exact weakest link. And here's what neuroscience shows us. Even tiny amounts of friction can reduce automatic behavior by huge percentages. Researchers have found that when you make any habit slightly harder, just seconds harder, its frequency drops dramatically. For example, in one study, simply moving candy bowls 6 feet away from people reduced consumption by 50%. Not because they didn't like candy anymore, but because that extra step made them pause and reconsider. Your phone is your candy bowl. The tiny lock is the 6 feet. It doesn't block you completely. It just slows you down enough for your conscious brain to rejoin the conversation. Let's play out an example. Imagine you're sitting at your desk trying to focus. Out of habit, your hand drifts to your phone. Normally, you'd unlock and you're gone for 30 minutes. But now, there's a lock. Maybe it's a physical pouch you zip up. Maybe it's a passcode barrier you added. That 1 second of friction is enough to jolt you awake. You suddenly see your own impulse in real time. And in that awareness, you realize, actually, I don't want to lose 30 minutes right now. You put the phone down. You stay in flow. That's the power of the tiny lock. It's ridiculously simple, but it reshapes your relationship with your device. Over time, your brain learns a new pattern. Phone in sight doesn't automatically mean pickup. The loop weakens. The addiction loses its grip. And the best part? It doesn't require you to become some disciplined monk. You're not relying on willpower because willpower is a limited resource. You're relying on design. You're changing the environment so the default works in your favor. This is the hidden truth about behavior change. Environment beats motivation. If your phone is always unlocked, always available, your environment is set up for distraction. If your phone has a tiny lock, your environment is set up for awareness. And awareness is all you need, because once you're conscious, you can choose. Think of it like installing a seatbelt for your attention. A seatbelt doesn't stop you from driving. It just protects you when you drift. The tiny lock doesn't stop you from ever using your phone. It just saves you from unconscious spirals, and as you practice, something deeper happens. That moment of choice begins to rewire your brain. Each time you stop yourself, you're strengthening the neural pathways of self-control. The more you use the lock, the less you even crave the automatic scroll. The craving loop is being replaced by a control loop. This is why you don't need months of detox or extreme measures. You just need a micro-intervention repeated consistently until it becomes automatic. And here's a little challenge you can try today. Pick one small lock. It could be an app that forces you to type a code. It could be a pouch you drop your phone into. It could be a time limit setting that asks you for a password. Whatever it is, make it frictional, not impossible, then test it. The next time your hand goes for your phone, notice what happens. That 1-second pause. Do you feel how it changes everything? That's the lock loop break in action. Now you might be wondering, won't I just get annoyed and disable it? At first, maybe. But here's the interesting thing. You'll quickly notice how much better you feel after the moments you don't unlock. Instead of the 40-minute fog, you get to keep your focus. Instead of feeling drained, you feel steady. That immediate positive feedback makes you want to keep the lock, because you'll start associating it with freedom, not restriction. Freedom from losing hours, freedom from being hijacked, freedom to choose. And that feeling is addictive in the best way, because once you taste that control, you'll never want to go back. Here's the fascinating part. The more you use the lock, the less you even think about it. At first, it feels like an obstacle, but with repetition, it becomes invisible, part of your environment, part of your identity. You're no longer someone constantly pulled by your phone. You're someone who checks it on your terms. And that shift is bigger than it looks, because phone addiction isn't just about lost minutes. It's about lost presence. It's about those moments when you're with someone you love, but half your attention is buried in a glowing rectangle. It's about sitting down to do meaningful work and finding that hours have vanished into endless scrolling. It's about how you feel afterward, scattered, drained, guilty, and somehow less alive. The lock is small, but the freedom it gives is huge. It's not just about saving time. It's about regaining energy. It's about proving to yourself that you're not powerless in the face of engineered distraction. You still have the driver's seat. Let's deepen this with a practical framework I call the focus shield. It's built on 3 pillars: space, friction, and reward. Space means creating a boundary between you and your phone. This could be physical, like putting it in another room, in a drawer, or in that little pouch I mentioned. But even just turning it face down or putting it slightly out of reach creates space. Space tells your brain, this device is not my master, it's just an object. Friction is the lock itself. You add a tiny barrier that slows you down, that wakes you up. Maybe it's a passcode you make deliberately harder. Maybe it's a screen time app that requires extra taps. Maybe it's a physical pouch with a zipper or even a lockbox. The form doesn't matter. The principle is the same, a speed bump in your habit loop. And finally, reward. This is the part most people forget. When you resist the scroll, you need to feel the benefit. Pay attention to how good it feels to keep your focus. Notice how clear your mind feels after an uninterrupted hour. Celebrate that feeling, because the brain learns through reward. The more you savor the benefits, the stronger the new habit becomes. Space, friction, reward. That's the focus shield. And it's not theoretical. It's something you can set up right now. Put a little distance between you and your phone. Add a tiny lock or barrier. Then actually notice the payoff when you don't fall into the spiral. Each of those steps reinforces the others until control is your new default. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest fears people have. What if I miss something important? This is the voice that keeps you chained to constant checking. But here's the truth. 99% of what you check isn't urgent. It feels urgent because the loop hijacks your brain. But most notifications can wait. And for the rare 1% that can't, you can set up exceptions. For example, you can configure your phone so that only calls from family or your boss bypass the lock. Everything else can wait. This way, the lock doesn't cut you off from life. It cuts you off from mindless distraction. Another fear is boredom. We pick up our phones in the small gaps, waiting in line, sitting in silence, lying in bed. But here's something powerful to realize. Boredom isn't the enemy. Boredom is the birthplace of creativity, of clarity, of actual rest. When you remove the automatic phone check, you rediscover the lost art of being present with your own mind. That might feel uncomfortable at first, but soon those quiet moments become where your best ideas emerge. The lock doesn't just save you from wasted time, it gives you back your ability to think. Let me ask you, what would it feel like to go one day without losing 40 minutes to scrolling? What could you create with that time? What could you repair, learn, or simply enjoy? Imagine going to bed at night and feeling that your time was spent with intention, not drained into a feed. That's the real gift here. The tiny lock doesn't just stop phone addiction. It restores your time to you. And time is the most valuable thing you have. Let's make this concrete with a challenge. Today, right after this video, I want you to set up your own tiny lock. It could be as simple as putting your phone in another room while you work. It could be downloading a lock app that requires extra steps. It could be buying a $5 pouch that zips shut. Don't overthink it, just choose one. Then, for the next 24 hours, notice what happens. Notice how many times your hand reaches for the phone and hits the barrier. Notice how that tiny pause gives you back choice. Notice how many minutes you save and how much clearer your mind feels. After just one day, you'll feel the difference. After 1 week, it will start to rewire your habits. And after 1 month, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. Because you'll no longer be the person pulled around by every buzz and ping. You'll be the person who owns their attention, their energy, their time. And here's the final truth I want to leave you with. The phone isn't evil. It's a tool. It can connect you, inspire you, teach you, but only if you're in control. Without boundaries, it controls you. With one tiny lock, you control it. So here's your challenge. Today, create that barrier. Add that friction. Build your focus shield. Release yourself from the autopilot scroll and reclaim your time. Not tomorrow, not someday, today. Because the next time your hand reaches for your phone, you deserve to feel that pause. You deserve to choose. And in that choice, you'll find freedom. Freedom from addiction. Freedom to focus. Freedom to live your life, fully present. 3 steps: space, friction, reward, one tiny lock, and your time finally back in your hands.